Hi, welcome to the Rittners Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today. We've got a neat little lesson planned for you. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Let's take a few flowers and just play with them and see what we come up with. We're going to start with one of my favorite flowers. One of my favorite flowers, of course, all of you know that just about every flower is one of my favorite flowers, but I believe that every flower brings something unique to the design table. And this is ginger, and I love this flower. It's a very, very neat flower. It's considered a tropical and exotic, and it has a very, very distinct presence. And I'm going to take my ginger, and I'm going to place it right here into my base. And you can see, my viewer, that it doesn't take much. A ginger or two in an arrangement certainly has a definite presence. So notice with two of these, we've got something that really is rather interesting. Now let's play with a combination of materials. And I often like to take materials and mix them in ways that you might not necessarily expect. And so I'm going to mix my ginger with another one of my favorite flowers, Bells of Ireland. Yeah, you probably would wonder about the combination of ginger and Bells of Ireland, but it actually does work, and you can come up with some very, very neat things when you start playing with weird combinations that you may never have really considered. Let's take a second bell and place it over here. So I've got a second one of my Bells of Ireland. And then let's take another one of my Bells of Ireland, and let's work it right here. So notice that with three of our Bells of Ireland and a couple of ginger, we've got something rather interesting going on. Now let's see, what other interesting mischief can we do on this? Well, why don't we take a flower that everybody loves. Everybody enjoys this particular flower. It's a favorite for most people, and that is, of course, our rose. So let's take a rose and play with it in this arrangement. And I'm going to cut my rose down, and I'm going to use it as a focal. I'm placing it right here, smack dab in the front. Let's take another rose and place it a little bit higher over here. And we're going to take another rose, and I'm cutting it down, and I'm going to place it lower over here. So notice we've got an interesting diagonal going on with our roses. Now let's start to play with some foliage. I know most of you who know me know that I love to play with baker fern, but I don't want to give you guys the impression that I only play with baker fern. So let's take a little bit of our salal, and I'm using a little salal tip here, and I'm going to place it angling it slightly over here. Let's take another little bit of salal and work it over onto the opposite side. So I've got one on the left and one on the right. Let's take a little bit more of our salal and play with that on our design. I'm going to take another little piece, and I'm going to work it right about in here. So I have some interesting things going on with some of our salal. Now, let's see, what other interesting things can we do? Oh, of course, a design is not a design without branchy stuff. And so let's take some branchy stuff, aka curly willow, and work some of our branchy material in here. So I'm going to take a piece of curly willow and place it right here, smack dab there. That's interesting. And I'm going to take another little bit of my curly willow, and I'm going to place it over onto this side, over here. And let's take another piece of curly willow. Hey, if one is good, two is better, three even is best. And so I'm going to take another bit of my curly willow and work it over here. So we got some interesting things going on in terms of lines. Now I could stop at this point if I wanted to, but I don't want my mechanics to be totally devoid of material, and so I'm going to mix my materials together. I'm taking a little bit of my sheet moss and I'm going to add a little of it here and there. So I'm covering my mechanics. And I'm holding them in place with some of our little hairpins made with some 20 wire. I'm working it a little here and a little there. I'm also going to place some of this up on the top. And of course, good workmanship would dictate that I not only work it on the top and on the sides, but also that I'd work a little bit in terms of the back of my design as well, so that our mechanics are nicely covered. I'm going to place a little back here too. So what do you think, my viewer? Quick, easy, and fun. The Rittner Floral School way. All I have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of my flowers, a little bit of my curly willow here and there, a little bit of foliage, and we've got an interesting composition. Sometimes it's not just what you have, it's what you do with it. Well, on behalf of all of us here at Rittners Floral School, I thank you for coming in and visiting with us today. I hope you enjoyed this.